Hey everybody, okay, let's get going because, all right, first of all, a preamble about Dave Samson. This guy, oh, I care about A's fans. I'm with you. I'm all this. This is the guy that took the Montreal Expos out of Montreal. So he comes off with all this, like, I care about you stuff. He doesn't give a big rat's butt about you. All he cares about is clicks and views, and his mouth, and that's it, okay? So here I go because I've had it. I have held all this back. I've been nice, yada, ignored what he had to say, but now I'm freaking tired, okay? Simple a matter of this. So this is what I'm saying, and that's it. And you can tune out if you want to. I don't care. Dave Samson, who decided to start a video blog series after his 15-year career as an executive with the Montreal Expos, which became the Florida Marlins, of late, considering that he spent years, too many, I argue, trying to secure financing for the Marlins. He then decides he's going to haul off on the A's and John Fisher. Aha. And, let's not forget that Dave Samson helped get the Montreal Expos out of Canada and become the Florida Marlins, all right? Which means, okay, he did damage to Expos fans, all right? Think about it, okay? This is what he did. He did damage to Expos fans, all right? Taking them out of Canada, okay? Destroying the fan base, okay? I heard the screams then. I remember them now, all right? Let's just put that on the table because Dave doesn't talk about that. Oh, no. He doesn't want to say anything that would make him look even halfway like he thinks John Fisher looks, or he wants you to think he thinks John Fisher looks. Think about it, okay? All right? It is really sad what he is doing. It's absolutely sad, okay? It really is. Sad that he would take shots at the Oakland A successful pursuit of Las Vegas Ballpark, knowing doggone well how hard it is and what he did to the Expos. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about the Marlins too, all right? Maybe he's jealous that it took John Fisher a mere 2.5 years to get financing, and it took him, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to secure financing. And at that, he didn't even get state financing, when the final part of it was all said and done. They tried their way of tax increment financing, but they didn't do it right. And so they wound up getting sued because there was a thought that, hey, you know what? The people should be voting on this. But fortunate for Dave Samson, the person suing them didn't really bother to read the fine print of the legislation. Oops. Okay. In other words, he's been there. He's done that. He ought to talk about it and stop making it look like, oh, I'm this like innocent dude out there in the wilderness and, I feel for you A's fans. Give me a freaking break. All right. That's not at all the case. Okay. So now let's talk about how he whiffed completely on the matter of the Oakland Athletics nude renderings for the Las Vegas ballpark. Some would call it the Sydney Opera House. Others, like myself, would call it Logan's Run. Ever see Logan's Run? Remember the Dome City? You get it, okay? My point is this. First, he says, it's AI, folks. It's not AI. And I'm really sick of people like him who never took a class in programming, for me, all right, who think that they know AI when they see it when they don't. They're just standard drawings, Dave. Just standard, made by HNTB and Bjarke Ingels. That's about it, all right? Dude, okay? Wake up, man, all right? So he acts like the renderings really just came out when, in point of fact, and you know this if you watch my channel on a regular basis, and if you don't, shame on you. Shame on you, all right? You would know that those drawings came out last October, all right? Because a certain little birdie, who's not really all that blue little to begin with, told me, all right? It is clear that Mr. Samson is playing to the Oakland A's fan base who doesn't live in Oakland. And while this group may be pissed that the A's are leaving and blast John Fisher, they're totally afraid you guys are of crossing Oakland Mayor Shang Tao and even the previous Oakland Mayor, my God, sis, Libby Schaaf. You barely mentioned Libby, but you'll jump on Nate Miley in a sub and, black politician. You'll get him. Oh, and next thing you know, writing this about Nate. You're writing about Nate. Give me a freaking break, all right? Give me a freaking break. blaming Nate, for example, on the whole issue regarding Oakland roots when he himself had no idea the meeting was being changed. It was not his fault. Are you listening to me? Can you hear? Can you read my lips? Can you comprehend what I'm telling you? Nate didn't do it. It was Rebecca Kaplan. You don't blame Rebecca. It's funny how you have this habit of saying saving your worst ire for anybody who happens to be either black or Jewish or both. I'm just saying, all right? Some of you people, you really need to check yourself before you wreck yourself some more, all right? This is the way this is going on, all right? Oh, by the way, Libby's running for state treasurer. This in of itself smells like dirty politics. And A's fans should be careful who they write their talking point to get their talking points from, because they might wind up giving them to Dave Samson. Oh wait. That really has to explain why, David is coughing up this crap, right? Of course it does. Well, let's take the whole acreage issue. That was laid to rest a long time ago. Samson, if he bothered to do his homework, he would have learned, just watch my channel again, that Ben Garcia, the man who came up with the first really cool design of an A's ballpark in Las Vegas, figured out that it could fit on 9 acres. Moreover, Fenway Park is just inside of 10 acres itself. And yet people are saying, this is going to be the smallest this, all right? And then the whole thing is on 38.6 acres. Also, Bally's and gaming and leisure properties are all too willing to allow the Oakland A's to build on their own Tropicana property beyond the 9 acres. And you would have to be a major league idiot to not see how much money the facility is going to make in its first year, 2028. Dave Samson is playing Oakland A's fans for clicks and views, and he thinks you're fools, all right? He's doing it on YouTube and nothing else. There's no way he can believe the bile he's coughing up. Stop the fake news, David. You know better. You've been found out. A number of people around Major League Baseball hear your crap, and the word about you is you're just a mouth, all right? And that's it. Talk. Yeah, this comes from a guy who's a mouth, all right? So it's a little about the pot, calling a kettle black, except that I'm black and you're not, all right? But my point is this. Stop it, okay? Just please stop it. I mean, you just coughed up every little talking point they fed you like a pup, like a cop, just did it. And that's it, all right? Reading your little teleprompter there, all right? Now let me get my comments here. Jason says, a lot of fake news from Rebecca Kaplan and Bay Area just trying to push their narrative. Yep. Vegas Mark says, every major Bay Area outlet is just a fake news story. Yep. Bay Area BS. Yep. Lopez says he has been against the A's move from the beginning. Even people in high places don't understand how government plays a role in getting stadiums built. But here's my point with Dave Samson, okay? He does understand. He is being very disingenuous. He has worked with, the Canadian government, the Montreal city leaders, as we call them, the city fathers and mothers, the Florida legislature, all right, for many years. David knows how this game is played at that level. And rather than give you all an honest to goodness rendition of his experiences, he chooses to, read talking points, go over, grab it. You can tell, picking off the sheet there, grabbing them, they're just below, and he's looking them down. He's part reading it, part looking at you, kind of like right in between, so you can't quite tell the difference. I got you, pal. Okay? And you know what? If you have to prepare your statement, so what? Good. But I tell people, hey, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm reading it. Fine. All right? Because sometimes you can't make all the things up that you want to say out of your head in order, and I trust me. All the time, you always come away with, well, you know what? I forgot to say this. I forgot to say that. You write it down. You don't forget. It's in writing. I don't care how old you are. It's a smart thing to do. Write it down. Anybody who says they don't need a teleprompter, they need bullets and talking points. No one is so good they can just wing it 100%. Ain't happening. Don't believe it. I've written speeches for politicians. Everything else, I'm not having it, okay? At all. All right? I'm not having it, okay? Yeah, you know it is. Knock it off. Anyway, back to what Lopez is saying, okay? David Samson, this dude's got a history, man. Let me read you David Samson's history because it's notable. He's not reading you his history. You know what? I'm going to do it for him, okay? I'm going to do it for him because he is not telling you the full skinny about his background and what he's done, and he figures that, oh, you're just fans. I'm not going to like waste your time, and I'm assuming that you're not interested in this when you know what you are. A lot of you're smart enough to get it if you pay attention, and you come away a lot better. That's a fact. Okay, David goes down. Says as president of the Marlins, Samson played a key role in negotiations, talking to secure a public-private partnership, which means he was talking to the government. He was representing the private, then there was the public, okay, to build a retractable roof park. That's what it says. Prior to that, he was the president, he was the executive vice president with the Montreal Expos from 1999 to 2002, short tenure, working in both cities, both Florida, Miami, and Montreal, under team owner and his former stepfather, Nepotism, Jeffrey Loria. How cool is that? His stepdad hired him. No wonder. I wish I had a stepdad like that. Hey, I wish my dad were like that, although my dad was a brilliant man. Rest in peace. Love my dad. But I'm just saying, okay? Moving forward. He got put in there, all right, by his dad, all right, to run things. Not bad. And so now he's the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. But Samson, I keep saying Sam, but it's Samson, all right? But he doesn't look like a Samson. Anyway, whatever, okay? Now, it says here that with his career with the Expos, I'm just reading this in Wikipedia as it is written. Samson was named executive vice president of the Montreal Expos in 1999 December, shortly after his then stepfather, I didn't put that in there, Jeffrey Loria, then stepfather, purchased the ownership stake of Claude Brichot and became chairman and CEO and managing partner of the Montreal Expos on December 9th of 1999. That was the same year that I was working, my first year working on the bid to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. Note, the tenure of Loria and Samson in Montreal would be brief, however, this reads. Samson played a key role in negotiating the sale of the Expos and subsequent purchase of the Florida Marlins in 2002, in a complex franchise swap that reshaped the landscape of baseball in 3 American and National League the East Division cities. And I have to say that too. There's a backstory here not told. And the backstory, purely and simply, hey, Timothy, is that they were going to contract the Expos. Why? They weren't making a lot of money. And so there was a deal, the deal I'm about to recite to you, that was kind of sort of an adjustment. And the reason why I say that so excitedly is it played a key role in the modification of my Oakland baseball sim world, because in those days, contracting teams was the conversation. If you weren't making money, where to take you out. And a lot of people didn't like it because it meant that fan bases would suffer. But I did design in a contraction option in my Oakland Athletics, Oakland baseball sim world, because I had students at USF and other colleges around the United States using it, and they're losing tons of money, upwards of $300 million over a 15-year span. I said, you know what? In real life, this would not happen. This team would contract. So if you lost more than $120 million a season, guess what? And the warning signs will come up, right? You got contracted. Boom. So I had students crying, calling me, it stopped. I got contracted. What do I do? But then they learned about baseball business dynamics and how to make the proper decisions in running the baseball organization. Let me continue regarding Mr. Samson. Just want to throw a little tidbit in there, okay, because it's not so little when you think about it, all right? At any rate, that was a big deal, okay? And then it goes on to report here that the Loria sold the Expos to a Delaware partnership. Delaware, not in location, but Delaware in terms of corporate structure, Expos Baseball LP. The partnership had been formed by a vote of Major League Baseball owners so that Loria would be free to purchase the Marlins from John W. Henry, who needed to sell the South Florida club in order to complete his purchase of the Boston Red Sox. The Expos would later be moved to Washington, D.C. You see how that goes? So basically, they sold it, and then it was moved to D.C. to become the Washington Nationals by Major League Baseball. That's what happened. And now, and the Washington Nationals part then turns to guess who? Yeah, former Oakland city manager, city administrator Robert Bob to get the Washington Nationals ballpark built there that Jerry Brown denied him building a similar type of building in uptown Oakland. For who? The Oakland A's. So see how all that fits together? I will continue. Now, the other fact is that the Expos moved and there. Then there was this RICO lawsuit that Samson was clearly involved in 2002. Wow. Man. Okay, what's RICO? RICO is Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations Act. It's a kind of legislation that was established to capture the mob, having these big organizations that owned laundry companies and bars and restaurants and law firms, okay? And the whole idea was to say, hey, look, you set this whole organization to do dirty things. Well, you know what? We have this new law. We can stop you from doing it. That's the very simple way about it. At any rate, Samson was on several defendants. In other words, he was accused of running a RICO organization, all right, okay? And it was filed by 14 minority partners of the Expos against Loria, Major League Baseball Commissioner Bob Selig, Chief Operating Officer Bob Dupuy, who I'm acquainted with, as well as Selig, the Commissioner's Office, and Dave Samson. The suit alleged that Selig, Loria, and Samson conspired for more than 2 years to eliminate the Montreal franchise fan base. He's cutting you off, Montreal fans, okay? All right? And move it to the United States, and that Selig had conducted mail fraud and wire fraud in the process. I didn't make this up. This is written, okay? The complaint further accuses Loria and Samson of conspiring with baseball officials to dilute the minority partners' share of the team from 76% to 6 to 7%, and of never intending to keep the franchise in Montreal. So he talks about, A's fans, I feel you. Yeah, right. Yeah, like hell he does. In response to the allegations, Loria and Samson argued that the partners' share was decreased because the partners refused to put up additional money that was requested by Loria in cash calls that were permitted by the partnership agreement. Loria also accused the former minority partners of hypocrisy, claiming that they had been unwilling to fund any operating losses since 1991 and had directed fire sales of players during the 1990s. The case against Loria, Samson, and Major League Baseball essentially ended on November 15th, 2004. And in fact, you want to know what? All the stuff that he has been accused of doing, talking about Samson, it makes John Fisher look like a saint. All right? I repeat, it makes John Fisher look like a saint. Why they were doing this? Because they couldn't make a lot of money in Montreal. That was the issue. That's where contraction came up among other issues around that. This was a linchpin moment in baseball history that Samson acts like doesn't exist because he wants to connect with you and fool you, and he's done a freaking pretty good job of it, hasn't he? Let me continue. This is so much fun, and I am having a freaking blast at it, all right? Now, Loria case ended November 15, 2004, when a 3-judge arbitration panel in New York ruled unanimously that there was no fraud or breach of fiduciary duty committed by Loria and Samson. As a result of the binding ruling, the limited partners dropped their bid for an injunction against the relocation of the Expos it eventually declined to pursue the RICO lawsuit. All right. And so then there was the purchase of the Marlins and everything else. But think about what I just told you. Okay. Samson was in the middle of taking the Expos out of Montreal and cutting off the fan base. Pissed off a lot of Montreal fans to this day. So how dare he come up with all this crap that he's been spewing out where he feels for the A's fan base and he's crying for him and all that's a lot of hooey and BS and it's a lot of hooey and BS. Oh, and then he's very much used to negotiating with government people in Florida. Hey, that's written too. I didn't write all this stuff up. It's public. It's on Wikipedia, okay? It goes on and it goes on. It talks about the ballpark, how I'm saying that the biggest challenge facing the long-term stability of the Marlins, sounds familiar, folks, A's fans, in 2002, it was not 22, that was the club's inability to secure a baseball-only ballpark with shelter from the extreme summer temperatures like you might find in Las Vegas and precipitation patterns of the southern Florida region. The first two owners of the franchise, Wayne Huizenga and John W. Henry, respectively, had failed in their efforts to secure funding for such a facility. Here comes Samson, heading a negotiating team that worked for more than 6 years to finalize a public-private partnership to build a new retractable roof air-conditioned ballpark in Miami. Prior to final approval in March of 2009, there have been many failed attempts to complete a deal. A new ballpark, originally slated to open in 2005, never came to fruition due to lack of state funding. Several unsuccessful attempts to secure state funding from Tallahassee delayed the deal further. Now, this all involves Samson, all right? The same guy that's been blasting the A's over their pursuit of public funding was going after a lot more, okay? Give me a freaking break, all right? Come on, Dave. Give me a freaking break. Cry a river, man. Come on, man. Then it goes on to read this. Continues. When the University of Miami Hurricanes left the old Orange Bowl to play its games elsewhere, the original Orange Bowl was demolished by the city of Miami. Nice work, Dave. Demolished by the city of Miami. Who got that done, Dave, right? Okay. Then you criticize the A's for getting the Tropicana demolished? Just saying, man, all right? Thereby creating a perfect site for the new ballpark. In March of 2009, final approval for the public-private partnership was completed between the Miami-Dade County, the city of Miami, and the Marlins. Absent from the final deal was any participation by the state of Florida, but as part of the deal, Jeffrey Loria agreed to pay $161 million of the estimated $505 $515 million price tag. The new stadium was funded and it was included in a $3 billion redevelopment plan by Miami-Dade County that also partly funded a tunnel into the Port of Miami, which is really cool, by the way. I've been on it, provide a major infusion of money for the Adrienne Arshford Center for the Performing Arts, Community Benefits, and funded urban redevelopment plans in Overton and the Arts and Entertainment District. Nice going, Dave Samson. Why don't you talk about all that, okay? All right. But then guess what? Another lawsuit that Dave Samson's involved in. South Florida businessman Norman Braverman, remember that name, filed a lawsuit in January of 2008 alleging that the deal between the Marlins and the county to fund the new stadium was illegal use of taxpayer money. Oh, I hate those people that don't understand tax increment financing, and Norman Braverman was one of them, okay? That intended to combat urban blight and should have been subject to a public vote. David Samson, you and I need to talk about the powers of TIF, and we should bring in my friend Dave Malmutt, who is the developer of the Oscars, to join us. At any rate, all 7 counts of the lawsuit were eventually dismissed, the last on November 21st to 28 by Miami-Dade Circuit Court Judge Ben Cohen. Due to the nearly year-long delay caused by the Braverman lawsuit, the original timeline for the construction of the stadium was delayed, and the opening date was pushed back from the 2011 season to 2012. The official groundbreaking ceremony was held July 18, 2009. in front of 5,000 fans. The ballpark and the newly rechristened Miami Marlins hosted their first regular season game April 4th, 2012 against the St. Louis Cardinals. And to that, I say, well done. Bravo, Dave Samson. Why the heck are you trying to make it look like the A's are not going through a similar situation, but coming out better than you did, okay? And taking less time than you did, okay? And just in general, not being, kind of honest about stuff? I don't know, all right? Just saying, all right? Just saying, okay? All right? So, okay, listen to this. Jay Lopez was not aware of his involvement with the thing. And then Zach says, we appreciate your sharing information with the A's of Las Vegas community. Brody Brazil has been saying a lot of BS also. I don't care about that. My point is this, okay? I'm talking about Dave Samson. Why? Because he's been there, all right? Also foul territory, Cass, okay? I think he's jealous he couldn't move his team to Vegas. Could have been. Timothy Ryan, okay? It says, I'm seriously getting tired of Twitter and YouTube narrative, says Gravity Fall Pines. Apparently, Fisher is broke. Vegas hates the A's. A's have lost 100, 20 years. I know the whole thing, all right? But Dave Samson, I'm particularly vexed with because, again, he has a lot to share. That's valuable experience, man. That's good stuff for people to know. And yet, he comes up with this stuff, okay? All right? And yeah, I got you, by the way. It's Samson. I don't mind you correcting me. It's Samson, not Samp, with not, not without the P, okay? Even the way I spelled it was correct. I did. You're right. I have to correct that, right? Let me correct that right when I'm done. I'll correct it. I'll take the P out of there, all right? At any rate, Samson or Samson, you're still wrong, son, because what you did was mislead people, David. You misled people. And not only that, you misled people at a time when all these fans are really literally dying to know how stadium financing works, the interplay between politics and financing, public-private partnerships. You would do a better job of explaining to A's fans concretely what went wrong with Montreal. I'd love to hear you talk about contractions. That would be a cool entry in my consideration of restarting my Oakland Baseball Sim World game for use in the classroom. You are leaving a lot on the table, sir, and I can't call you a friend because I haven't met you. You probably hate my guts. Whatever. And I'm not saying necessarily kind things about you, but I'm not saying personal things about you, except that you're being, I guess disingenuous is kind of personal, is it? But it's a professional issue because you're not telling people the truth. And hey, you're a public figure, as am I. It's written out. It's right out there. You banked on the idea that these folks would never find out. But guess what? For anybody watching this, now they know. They know the truth about your involvement with Montreal. And hey, I could probably find out other things. Maybe if I did a little, more searching about what you did and what people had to say, and if I wrote David Samson, maybe if I wrote contraction. What I would wrote contraction. I'm just curious in what he would say, all right? Okay? And somebody said that, I think this was David Samson. It was so wrong. It's amazing. This is on Reddit, man. Somebody's getting after you on Reddit, boy, okay? Saying, this is 2 years ago. David Samson is so wrong about something, all right? About brand image, whatever. That's a different subject than what I'm interested in. But I'm talking about what you went through, and you never, you should be caught. If I type David Samson and contraction, not contractions, but contraction, I should hear that. Now, apparently you talked about your biggest regrets in the Marlins or something, but I'm talking about the Expos. I'm telling you what you did to the fan base in Montreal, all right? That's what I am talking about, okay? That's what I'm talking about. And it's not here anywhere. It's like you're trying to avoid it. Is this for a lawsuit reason? Is it? Okay. Is it something? What's going on? Former New Jersey Attorney General and Chairman. This is something where apparently Nope, that's not you. Yeah, that's not you. That's another David Samson. Wow. You're not telling people about what happened. I'm scrolling through here. I'm looking at this. All right. Uh, there's something here on the Breaks Ball Prospectus, Bizball, Marlins ownership and a history lesson in greed. Didn't you accuse John Fisher of being greedy? I'm just saying, John Fisher spent more of his money in percentage than you all are seeking in public funding. Well, let's think about that for a moment, Dave. He was only seeking $120 million bond issue. Tax credits are optional. You know that as well as I do. Okay? Tax credits are optional. All right? But your guy was seeking not 400, 500 million, a lot more. Okay? Let's be honest about it. Okay? Now, this guy, Maury Brown, isn't that the same Maury Brown that writes, has the Twitter account, I think, maybe, all right? Came after you and said that I think Jeff Loria was Gordon Gecko or something like this as I'm reading this, talking about how I got the Expos. And there's something called Loria-Samson. I'll read what he wrote here. This is what this gentleman wrote. In fact, you know what? I think I need to slip it in here so you can see what. No, I'm not going to force you to do that. I'm just going to read it to you, folks. I'm going to give it to you cold. He first surfaced time about Loria on Major League Baseball's radar. Loria, remember, Jeff Loria, all right, is guess what? The stepdad of Samson, right? Okay. All right. The stepdad, all right? Okay. He first, okay, so basically he goes down and all right, it says this, okay? After purchasing the minor league Oklahoma City 89ers in 1989, he sold them in 1993. In 94, he set his sights on the Baltimore Orioles, who were being auctioned out of bankruptcy. He lost the auction to Peter Angelos, but kept his desire to get into Major League Baseball. In 1999, he took $12 million and purchased a 24% minority stake in the Montreal Expos. And as the club floundered in red ink, cash calls were made to the investors in the club. When the other investors failed to come through, Loria swooped in and eventually found himself the majority owner of the Expos at 94%. It's here where the Loria-izing of each club he owned began to take shape. He almost immediately said that the Olympic Stadium was substandard, and that a new ballpark was needed. Why do I say ooh? Because I'm saying the ooh is like, hey, doesn't it sound like Oakland? All right, right? And all right, when that didn't seem to be taking hold, Loria and his stepson, Dave Samson, right here, right in black and white, who was made club executive vice president, began dismantling the fan base further by not coming to an agreement for English-speaking radio and television deals. I didn't write this, folks. Mr. Brown did, all right? The effect was simple. It made the case that Montreal was not a viable market, even if the actions of the ownership had played a key part in driving fans away. Okay? So wait a minute. Could it be that John Fisher and company learned something? Maybe they were learning Loria-izing from Dave Samson. I'm just saying. Okay? I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. Okay? You can't make this stuff up. This is right here in Baseball Prospectus. Let me give you the link. The link is right here. All right? I will put the link right here. Boom. All right? Here is the link. Let me go down here. That's the link. Okay? Go there and read it and weep. It's all there in its glory. David Samson, David Samson, David Samson. All right, now, there that is. Let me go back to what I was reading to you, because this is some juicy stuff, folks, all right? Brown is accusing Dave Samson and his stepdad for wrecking the Montreal fan base, all right? Oh, but then it gets better, folks. He goes on to write, Bud Selig really couldn't do anything about Loria being in his midst when he began purchasing majority interest in the club. And besides, if he could get the Expos either a new stadium or shut down via contraction, so be it. The latter of those options didn't come into full bloom, no pun intended, Jim Bloom. You work for the A's, you know what I'm talking about, all right, until Loria left Montreal. The league pulled a nepotistic maneuver when the sale of the Boston Red Sox surfaced in 2002 and a group that was comprised of then Marlins owner John Henry came on the scene. A love triangle of sorts was concocted. The league would purchase the Expos from Loria for $120 million. In turn, Loria would purchase the Marlins for $158.5 million, which would allow Henry to purchase the Red Sox. Got it? So basically, the Loria is saying, hey, here's that money, and here you take that money, league, and Henry, and you get that Red Sox. Loria didn't have, or maybe didn't want to dig up on his own all the money needed, so the Major League Baseball gave him a 38.5% interest-free loan, $38.5 million. They didn't put how much it was. It just says $38.5. I think they meant $1 million. $38.5 million interest-free loan to bridge the gap. Loria and company were so cheap. Now look, this is sound like Fisher, right? I'm not writing this. This is public, okay? This is public, Dave. All right, Samson. This is public, okay? All right. Now, okay, he says Loria and company were so cheap that when the sale was complete, they took all the office furniture and computers, leaving people like Omar Minaya, who is GM of the Expos, with a mess. The rest of the Miami owners filed a racketeer influence corrupt organizations at RICO that I described to you in detail earlier, right? Lawsuit against not only Loria, but Selig and the league for conspiring to purposely derail the club in order to contract it. Read the RICO complaint, plus see Major League Baseball's response here. An arbitrator sided with Loria and the league, and eventually the Expos wound up in D.C. as the Nationals. That's what happened. If that doesn't sound like, hey, Oakland A's heavy versus the reality of Oakland A's being light, I don't know what does. Because the key difference here is that, yeah, the A's were losing a ton of money. You all heard it, but the city had to go in and basically add in its own inability to get stuff done. And I always say this to anybody who won't listen. I don't care what the owner is doing. I don't care what Major League Baseball is doing. You make sure that you as a city have your I's dotted and T's crossed so they can't come down and do parallel paths and say you didn't get your end of the deal done. Oakland didn't get its end of the deal done, so Oakland's got nothing to say. All right? Now, then it goes on to write this, all right? Loria lands, the sweetheart deal for the Marlins, but then this guy goes on. This guy is all up Dave Samson's you-know-what. Samson disparages the Brewers and touts building it up and tearing it down. That's what it says here, folks. The club had begun dismantling the team that had won the 2003 World Series yet again. Let me guess why. Because, as we learned when Dan Rasher and I developed the Oakland Baseball Sim World, hey, when you win the World Series with all those star players you shelled out money for, guess what? A funny thing happens. After the next year when people start to come and see you, they fall off. And then you know what? When they fall off, the revenue falls off, and suddenly you got some money to shell out. So you got to start dumping players. Sad part of the deal, all right? Unless you structured it differently. That's another story. But again, citing the need for the new ballpark to allow them to retain players. Unable to sign Yurgithan Brina and Ivan Rodriguez, they left in free agency. Those they did. They traded Derek Lee to the Cubs for Hee-Sop Choi and pitcher Mike Nyani. They did sign Mark Lau, he writes, to a 4-year deal, but it had a provision within it where Lau could opt out of the final 2 years of the deal if no new ballpark were built for the Marlins. As Brown walked over to Samson, who was sporting his gaudy new World Series ring. This is what Mr. Brown is, right? This is Maury Brown writing this, okay? Maury says, I mentioned naively, it seems in retrospect, given recent moves by the club, how the retention of talent must be difficult without their own ballpark. It was also here that I realized, Maury writes, just how scary the Marlins brain trust really was and still is. Oh my God, I gotta pull myself together here. Okay, at any rate, all right, just how scary the Marlins brain trust was and still is. Samson broadsided me, not by speaking of the Marlins directly, but by disparaging a fellow club. And then this is what Mr. Brown writes that Mr. Samson did. Samson without the P. Can't you believe those effing Brewers, Samson said, not hiding his disgust. They're giving away tickets to the last game of the season because they finished over 500. How effing stupid is that? Giving away tickets for being average. I tell you, we'll build it up and tear it down year after year if that's what it takes to win a World Series. Now, doesn't that sound a lot like how he's doing John Fisher and the A's people? Okay, so there's a pattern here with Samson, man. All right. Oh, it goes on. So Brown writes, I was stunned. First off, Brewers owner Mark Antanasio, that's a cool name, man, was doing something positive for the fans after not being above 500 for years under Selig's tenure. It was a smart move that, as we've seen, has endeared him to the community, which in turn has allowed the Brewers to draw attendance totals over 3 million more than once now. 2008, 3,068, 3,668,458, 2009, 3,037,000, 2011, 3,071,000, and has helped them be competitive. In terms of the tearing down and building back up the Marlins roster, it was then that I realized, this is Brown writing, that only quick fixes would ever do it for the organization. That the ballpark was not really going to be a part of it. That's what Wayne Huizenga had done with his fire sale after the 1997 World Series was not limited to just Wayne Huizenga, okay? This was something that seemed to be embraced by Loria, all right, and Samson as well. But that was 2003. It was possible that if and when a new stadium did come about, things might change. And note, this spells out one thing. Dave is clearly aware of how a new stadium or ballpark will impact the bottom line of a baseball facility. I can tell you that once you build the facility, you have a 3-year to 4-year honeymoon where everybody comes to see you, and because you're in a new facility, and you make probably the most money on a yearly basis you're going to make, except for World Series and other events, unless of course your population grows and other positive changes in the demographics happen through its history after its opening as a ballpark. All right, Dave should know that. In fact, he really does know that. So he's been completely disingenuous in this whole deal. And you know what? It continues. All right, continues. Brown writes more. Okay, he wrote. All right, that it was possible that if and when a new stadium did come about, things might change. But here's the headline. Marlins built public for stadium. Get hand slapped by Major League Baseball MLBPA. Funnel money to themselves. That's his headline, not mine, okay? Not mine. Major League Baseball Players Association's MLBPA, all right? Of course they didn't change. And this gets to some A's fans' concern, all right, regarding the stadium. I'm just reading this and I'm playing it straight, folks, okay? Of course they didn't. When Loria and Samson finally found local and regional politicians gullible enough to help them build their stadium, or worse, as an SEC investigation of funding the ballpark is ongoing, they had only to pitch. In 125 million of the $634 million price tag. To make matters worse, when it's all said and done after interest, the ballpark will cost taxpayers $2.4 billion. Woo! And prior to that, in 2010, the club got into hot water with the MLB, Major League Baseball Players Association, for potentially breaking the collective bargaining agreement. At the time, a joint statement by the union and league was released that said in part, the basic agreement requires that each club use its revenue sharing receipts in an effort to improve its performance on the field. This requirement is of obvious importance to all players, clubs, and fans of the game. In recent years, the union has had concerns that certain clubs have not lived up to this requirement and has consulted regularly with the commissioner's office about those concerns. The Florida Marlins are one of a number of clubs that have been discussed. Of course, the Marlins being the Marlins. Hand got caught in the cookie jar. Oh my God. And at the point where the Major League Baseball Players Association was on the, excuse me. Let me catch myself here. All right. Let me repeat that. Of course, the Marlins being the Marlins, hand caught the cookie jar at the point where the Major League Baseball Players Association was on the verge of filing a grievance against the league, denied wrongdoing. The Marlins have consistently made every effort to put the best product on the field, and our record supports the fact that we have been successful in that regard, said Samson, as part of the release from the league and union for the players. Throughout the discussions, the Marlins maintained that there had been no violation of the basic agreement at any time. While we know that the Marlins will always comply with the basic agreement, we are happy to work cooperatively with the union and the commissioner's office on this matter. At that stage, the Marlins had ranked no higher than 20th by the end of the year play roll, okay? And they were at 37th. Yeah, they went up to 60. Wow, they went down to a payroll of 14 million by 1999. They started out at 37 million. They got as high as 63 million in 2003, and then okay. And a few months after getting taken out behind the woodshed by Major League Baseball and the MLBPA for not using revenue sharing funds properly, Deadspin and the Associated Press leaked financial documents from several clubs, including the Marlins. See here, the documents fueled the debate whether the club had any interest beyond using revenue sharing as a form of welfare. But it also showed that the club was cooking the books. On page 34 of the financial documents, under the section, quote, management, unquote, it cites Double Pay Company, which was getting paid in the high $2 million annually, and then saw their fee increase to $32 million. This was counted as an expense. Who are the listed owners of Double Pay Company? Get this. I'm going to repeat what I'm about to say to you before I read the punchline, all right? On page 34 of the financial documents, under the section Management, it cites Double Pay Company, which is getting paid in the high $2 million annually, and then saw their fees increase to $3.2 million. This was counted as an expense. Who are the listed owners of Double Pay Company? Jeff Loria and his stepson, Dave Samson. Yeah. In other words, millions of dollars each year funneled out of the Marlins coffers and lining the pockets of Loria and his stepson, Samson, through these fees. Oh, I can read this, folks. I can read you this rest of this. This is a ton. I mean, I'm going to do another part to this. I'm going to do a part 2. All right, because I want to catch the State of the Union among that's almost an hour, and I want to get your comments, okay? But my point is, this should effectively eviscerate the idea that David Samson is an honest player with you. He is not. I can say that in black and white comfort because it's documented. All I have to do is compare what he said to you, which I have done, with what he's been documented as doing, which is making John Fisher and the A's look like saints. Okay? And you can bet that John Fisher and the A's are laughing at David Samson because I know they are. And you could also bet that, hey, guess what? Dun da da da, dun da da da, dun da da da. They're making every move to not make the mistakes that Samson did with the Marlins. Okay? Okay? All right? Oh, and by the way, given what I just said, no, the A's did not tip me off to this idea. I got triggered when I heard Samson talking about it, and I got tired, as I said at the onset of this, okay? So no, that's what happened. But I did do some homework after, and I made a few calls to check my sources. And that's when I realized the truth that I'm really reading to you. But what I got in my calls was 1/1000th of what I just read to you. I had no idea what I was read to you was out there until I found it while doing this. Okay? So my reaction is, this is a reaction video. Reaction video to the horrors of Dave Samson. All right? Wow, okay? All right? So, all right, in all this, you would say, when was this written that Mr. Brown wrote this? This was written in, let's see here. If I go back up to the top, this was November 19th of 2012. And that's when it was written, November 19th, 2012. Now, let me get to your comments here. I'll read those and then I'll get out of Dodge here, all right? It says, let's see here. I don't want to hide current comments. Hope it says Debbie Downer Broadcasting Network, whatever. Type MLB contraction Wikipedia. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. How you doing? I put out there, right? And Zach says, Dave said that the A's would move last November. Now he's saying they're not going to go to Las Vegas, saying the plan will fail or fall apart. Complete bull. Yeah, talking about Dave Samson, not Dave Cobble, of course. Las Vegas gets stuff accomplished, plain and simple. Yep. Timothy Ryan. Oakland messed up and people aren't willing to admit it. Thank you. Then Hoper says, everyone has 2020 hindsight, but Oakland need to get serious the day the A's were on a parallel track with Vegas. Yep. The assumption that the A's would not leave was wrong. And we've done it tons of times before, okay? Michael Oxlon says, oh, no way, dude can come after the Brewers. Not having it. Rick Gray says, my thought here is Fisher realized that even if he built Howard Terminal, he wasn't sure Oakland A's fans would support the team after initial opening of the stadium. Prices would be too high. You know, that's something to consider, you know, Rick. I think that's a good point. Rick goes on to remark, the A's moving into Vegas and only being responsible for 9 acres in a ballpark will charge whatever they want, and the value of waves will go up twofold. That's right. Yep, absolutely. And so there's the absolute truth, folks, okay? Dave Samson, I invite you to come on my show and discuss this anytime, sir, because you are part of Major League Baseball history, and you have a duty, whether you accept it or not, to explain to A's fans what really went down and why you destroyed the Montreal fan base, because that's what you did. That's what you did. Was it too expensive there? Why did you want to get out of Montreal? Fair question, okay? What was going on over there, you know, in Canada that made it not viable? I'm going to read more about that. I started reading about it initially, but I was too busy in the process of coding my Oakland baseball sim world to really get down into the nitty gritty. I was simply looking for a historical marker to have as a mechanism and justification for why I needed to force students to learn baseball business dynamics by getting contracted. Okay, that was the idea. Algorithmically contracted. Okay, and so Gary says it's going to be interesting to see how the structural engineering is going to work out with that design on 9 acres and no less. There are examples to support what they're doing. You might want to take a look at SoFi Stadium, among others. That's a good one. All right, folks, I got a jet, and thank you very much for paying attention to a very interesting and fascinating development here. I hope, please share this. People need to know the truth about what David's putting out. and really where the Florida Marlins Montreal Expos episode fits in this current history as sort of a hallmark of where the A's fit and how they're different from what was done. And Dave Samson, really, if he wanted to really do everybody else a favor, he would come and spit the absolute truth. He hasn't done that. Gotcha. All right, we'll see you. Thank you. Hey, by the way, Oscars Sunday, Zinni 62, bookmark it. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm on the Ampus press list. Again, I should say we because it's my company. Well, yeah, 60% owned. We'll see ya. Subscribe to Zinni 62 and bookmark our newest website, the new company website. Yeah, Zinni62media.com. Oh, but let me give you a little sneak peek look at what it looks like, okay? I got to share this before I get out of here. Because I'm really proud of what even Uni has built. For a change, I didn't build the site. I kept my dirty little hands off it. Well, not so little hands, but you get the idea. Always a good idea to get somebody who really knows what they're doing, eh? Okay. Right here. To media. There. All right. Now let me get this. There. And also, something else I want to say while I'm out. Okay. That's the new site, folks. Our new corporate website, okay? All right? Cool. All right, folks. So, I want to say something. I want to apologize to some A's fans. I think you get so deep in the weeds, and again, my issue is being right about things and understanding what's happening. And I say right. What's true changes. It changes with knowledge. It changes with calculations, changes when you discover things you search, right? But when I criticize, I don't criticize personally. And some of you out there have taken personal shots that make me think maybe you're against me because I'm black and I have a Jewish surname. And I certainly hope that's not the case. Like I told this story before. I was talking about I was in Tokyo. I was on my way to Narita Airport coming back, and Narita was crowded. And I was, hey, Japanese businessman going to work. If you've ever been to Tokyo, it's what it is. And so there was a guy struggling to put his coat on. And I was in a hurry to get to my flight. I was scared, right? But I stopped because I'm that person, and I helped him with his coat. All of a sudden, it's like, in Japanese, oh, no, they're literally descending on me. Scared the crap out of me. And they thought because I'm black, I was going to do some harm to them. They realized, and even the guy was waving them off like, no, and, Japanese, but that wasn't the case. So when I share that to these A's fans or the couple, they think it's funny. It wasn't funny. It was scary. It was an example of how people can judge you by a color, but it takes someone else who looks like them to say, hey, look, you're okay. That was scary stuff. All right. See you later. Thanks.